Hi, my name's Richard. I'm a full-time boudoir photographer and we have a studio here in Australia. And today what I'd like to talk about is the subject of contracts. And what made me think to do a video about it was I was on a Facebook group this week. A photographer posted into the group about a problem that they were having with one of their clients was seeking opinions on how to proceed. And of course, when these things happen, invariably what happens is they get too many opinions. But in amongst those opinions are people talking about contracts, asking if they're using contracts, if they're not using contracts, why aren't they using contracts, all this type of thing. And I feel that a lot of photographers feel better about having a contract because they feel it protects their interest and things like that. But I don't personally like contracts, and there's two reasons for why I don't like contracts for portrait photography. Now, just to be clear, I'm definitely not against contracts. I feel that you do need a contract for weddings and you probably do need a contract for some commercial photography. But for portrait photography, not so much. And the reason I don't like them is for two reasons. One is I think that they're a really serious barrier to entry. And the other reason being is I would never bother enforcing a contract. So let me explain those two things a little bit better. So why is it a barrier to entry? Well, let me just really quickly explain to you how we go about booking people. So if we get an inquiry from someone, what happens is I call them up, I explain to them the way it all works, I give them the prices, and if we agree on all that, then what happens is I book them in on the spot, and then what I do is I take a deposit from them over the phone, I put the numbers into a machine, I take their payment, I then send them a receipt, and then they're all booked in and they're ready to go. Now, we don't pre-sell packages. We prefer to do it a la carte at the end with in-person sales. But if we did do packages and things like that, it would be the same process. We would sell them the package, and we would take that payment and then send them a receipt. Now, the problem that I see with contracts is if you're making it a condition that they sign a contract for them to come to your studio, then you've got to obviously get them to sign it. So the way that I've done it in the past, there might be a better way, and if there's a better way to do it, I'm all ears. I'd be happy to hear it just for my own interest. But back, like when I did weddings, the way it would work is I would send them an invoice for the deposit and then a contract that needs to be signed. That all came out of our CRM. But the trouble with I see it with portraits is that it's a decision that gets made. They've worked themselves up to it and they've decided to do it and they're excited about it. And then if you get to this level where they're having to do more things to book in, I think in some cases you can lose that momentum and they just drift away because they can't be bothered reading the contract. You lose that momentum and then all of a sudden it's the next day and they still haven't done it, and it's the day after. And so the question I ask myself is, if they don't sign a contract, would you not have them in? Well, in my case, I would. The other thing that a lot of people don't consider is that a lot of people can't read very well or can't read at all. And in fact, I've heard that a huge amount of people can't even really read beyond a basic primary school reading level. Now that's not, and the reason we're not aware of this is because just because they can't read doesn't make them stupid by any stretch of the imagination. It just means they can't read very well. And so, particularly with legal documents, and especially if you've purchased from a lawyer, that contract will often contain a lot of fairly complicated language. And so people that don't have a very high reading level, that can be very intimidating to them. And what can potentially happen is that they just are too embarrassed to admit that they don't understand it. So even though I don't have a contract, there are a couple of legal documents that I do use. We do use a document called a model release. And what a model release is, it's a document which gives us permission, excuse me, to use their photographs for any purpose that is a legal purpose. And we're very, very, very careful about that because we wouldn't want to get anyone into trouble by accident. And a good example of that is in our country anyway, school teachers are, from what I can gather, school teachers have been instructed not to release their images into the world because, for example, students can take those images and do things with them. So we would never want to cause people any trouble. So that's why we make sure that they agree that we can use the photographs for whatever purposes we want. We also do get a sales receipt signed saying that they agree that everything they've ordered is correct and the quantities are correct and all that sort of stuff. And that is attached to the receipt that we produce from a piece of software called ProSelect. And ProSelect is in-person sales software. Now, what happens though if we run into problems after the session and after the sale? And I think this is why contracts are so attractive to a lot of photographers. They feel it protects them against these things happening. But one of the things that does tend to happen a lot, you get a phone call the next day and they say they want to cancel their order because they can't afford it, or they want to amend their order and make it smaller or whatever. Now, in that case, what we would do is we would just agree to that and honour their wishes. Because the one thing that we do want to do is we want to preserve our reputation as being a good studio that people want to deal with, basically at any cost, to be truthful, because that good reputation will serve us really well going into the future. We don't want to be that studio where people have regrets, and they look at their photographs or wall art or albums or whatever they decide to get, and look at them with regret. We don't want that at all. So there's that. So having said that, back before I did Boudoir, I did get that occasionally. I used to get people say, you ring up and say, "Oh, can we reduce the order?" And in those instances, again, like I just said, we always said yes to that. We didn't get into any dispute. I guess what I'm saying is that for the extra amount of people that I book, and which I believe is quite a few by not demanding a contract, and the fact that I would never pursue those people anyway through the courts, I feel that I'm making a hell of a lot more money, and I feel like I'm making my life a lot easier as a result of by not having them. In other words, I'm just basically making my life as a professional studio photographer easier and ultimately more profitable. So that's it. I hope you got something out of it. I will finish with the obligatory. If you did like this, please like it and subscribe. If you did that, that'd be wonderful. And if you've got any suggestions, I'd love to hear them for future videos. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Richard, and I appreciate your attention watching this video if you made it this far. Have a great day.